Hello, welcome once again to Rugby Nation. I'm Nick McArdle, and Christy Doran from Rugby.com.au is with us, and we're very pleased to have him this week, Wallabies Coach Dave Rennie. Dave, thanks very much for your time in what is obviously a busy stage of the week, so we appreciate it. We're going to talk about this week's game in just a moment. You're almost, though, at the end of your first Test campaign, so if we just step back a little bit, what have you found out about yourself as a coach over the last, couple of months or so?
Found out I can live without my wife for 3 months. She won't be happy to hear. But I think we had 9 months where we saw each other every day, which is unique as well. So I think she was pretty happy to get me out of the house. But it's been a really enjoyable. I think we've had 10 weeks together, and even the players are saying that the time's flown by, and it's a good sign really, because. Normally a long tour would be 4 or 5 weeks. But the group's come together really well and working hard and learning lots. So I've certainly learned a lot about the players. I've certainly got a better idea of where our skill sets are at to play the type of game we want to play. And my role after this will be to try and share what we've learnt with Super Rugby coaches and try and spend a bit of time in their environment and learn off them as well as to what they're doing. And try and get a really strong connection.
Dave, you've coached now all around the world, but a lot in New Zealand, a lot of provincial rugby. What do you see the major differences are between international and provincial coaching?
A little bit about time, really. We probably had the luxury of having, almost 3 weeks to build into that first test, and normally 2 would be as much as you'd get. So in the club season, you could have 8, 9, 10 weeks of preparation, and it allows you to get a lot of detail in your game. And we made good use of the time in Christchurch. Obviously, the fact that no one could go out and connect with family and friends and that sort of thing. We were forced to spend a lot of time together, and we come up with a lot of innovative ways of learning, and so we went into that first test reasonably confident that we had an idea of or a strong idea of our game, and we've just tried to grow it from there. So so I guess the biggest learning for me is there's a lot less time. But I think we did a pretty good job of dedicating time to our skill sets, our conditioning, a lot of cultural stuff. And we've made a good start in that area, I reckon.
When you say you've learned about the skill sets that the guys have in terms of the game that you want to play, is there anything there that's surprised you pleasantly or otherwise, or is it about what you thought that it would be?
I mean, I'd watched a lot of Super Rugby AU and rugby before COVID hit. We felt that from a conditioning point of view, we're a bit behind the 8 ball compared to the Kiwis, and also from a skill set perspective. And we put a lot of time into basics. I reckon if Joe Public come and watched our training, they'd see it's pretty intense. They're very quick, but we're putting a lot of time into detail and basic skills. So a lot of catch pass, a lot of decision making, a lot of work on body shape and double pumping, and attack, and a lot of emphasis around carry and sharp lines and clean out, and basic tackle technique and hunting and so on. So it's been we're just trying to grow the base and improve to try and achieve technical excellence. And we're not there yet. There's a fair bit of work to be done, but we're certainly better than we were 10 weeks ago.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that. So from the start of the campaign to now, and there all of those things, I imagine, or at least some of those things I know that you have measurements around. And are those numbers, trending in the right direction? Are there significant improvements in all of those things that you've talked about?
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of good stuff against Argentina last week. Frustrating thing is that we didn't finish off, and And often with them, it's just one more pass or one more ruck. But, we created a lot of opportunities and the boys work really hard. So the opportunities we thought were on the park, we were able to expose them, but you got to finish them off. And, at 15-6, we overplayed our hand, and really all we needed to do was keep putting it back in the corner, forced Argentina to chase the game. So we're a bit naive in that regards. And it was a tough couple of days, but we had an excellent review. I reckon we've learnt a truckload from that game, and we'll be better for it, and expect to see that on the weekend.
Dave, in your initial remarks, you said that you'd learn a bit more about the players. Who's surprised you thus far over the last couple of months?
I think it's always hard to pull out individuals, but like Hunter Paisami, we knew he had a pretty solid skill set because he kicks well. He kicks off both feet. Not that I think a lot of people would know that about him. He's generally a pretty good distributor, and we all know he carries hard and can cut people in half. I guess if I look back 6 months ago when I first saw him play, Jordi Patoya's out and Hunter gets a start, and he really caught our eye in that first game, and he spent a fair bit of time on the sideline injured. And but outside of a really commanding voice, he's got an outstanding skill set, and he's slotted into international rugby quite easily, isn't he? You think about 4 tests against the All Blacks, it's a hell of an introduction in it. So I think he's been really good, and a number of other guys have been too. But as far as a young fella coming from nowhere, really, I think he's been pretty impressive.
What about a couple of big names? Matt Tamura and James O'Connor, obviously, injuries, key positions. How different would this campaign have looked if those two guys hadn't been injured? With the caveat being, of course, injuries are part of the game. But in terms of what you wanted to achieve, has that heavily impacted on what you were hoping or where you were hoping to be at this stage?
With injuries and that sort of thing comes opportunity. Obviously, one thing about James, his ability to play really square and play on top of defences is excellent. And so when we look at Hodgie, I think he's gone really well at 10. He's been a little bit lateral though, and it's not easy when you've come from playing everywhere else but 10. So I think he's made a pretty good fist of it. But what we do know with Rabs is that he'll ask a lot of questions of the defence, and they won't be able to push off as the Argentinians have been able to do in most tests. They defend really well. You got to play on top of them. So look, we've missed that little bit of experience and so on. But I think obviously Reece has played a couple of tests there. Noah's got a start in amongst all that as well, and all those guys are going to be better for it. Obviously we lost James Slipper. We had Lucan out for the last 3 tests, and all those guys are part of our leadership group. So that's been an interesting dynamic too. We had 8 in our group, but only 3 playing. Deho Petty obviously out as well. So that's been good. We've brought other guys in, and so they've grown in that role as well. So one thing with us, we don't seem to talk about who's missing. Tend to focus on who's playing, and I think if you talk a lot about guys who are injured, you're giving boys an out to underperform. So I think we've done a pretty good job around that.
Dave, it's amazing. We talk about we're just missing James O'Connor and Matt Tamura for these last couple of tests, but you think about at the start of the year and before coronavirus even hit, we were expecting to see more than a dozen Wallabies tests this year. So it's amazing how quickly the landscape can change. Before arriving here, touching down in the middle of the year, did you expect to see this kind of side, or did you thought that there might have been more uncapped players given an opportunity? And did you even approach the year thinking that I'm going to give a lot of chances to a lot of people with, the long-term view of building a side to the 2023 World Cup?
Yeah, definitely. But we wanted those guys to earn the right to play. We didn't just want to hand out caps. And so everyone who's played so far, they deserve the right to play. And it's either through Super Rugby or it's been through, performances at training and putting pressure on us. And one thing, look, we've talked about earn the right to play, and we've given guys that opportunity. So I think it's helped the intensity and the quality of trainings too, because guys know that we're trolling over all the footage and we're giving a lot of feedback to the boys. So it's been good. I think it's 10 new caps this year. And then, there's a couple of guys, or three guys two guys who've picked up their 100th cap as well, which has been pretty good for the team. And so lucky, we always plan to bring in some new blood. And I think a lot of those young men have acquitted themselves pretty well.
Yeah.
And given that the next World Cup, really isn't that far away, next year we'll return to, we don't know to what extent, but to some sort of normality. Do you revisit the Giddo law and do you start to look overseas, or are you absolutely committed to picking Wallabies out of Super Rugby?
I think it's been altered so we can pick a couple from anywhere. So we'll keep that in mind. We were keen to bring Rory Arnold back to give us a bit of depth at lock. Obviously, it's an area where we're very thin. But having said that, Matt Phillips has been excellent. He's another guy I could have talked about the fact that he's made massive shifts in his game. Really good footwork and contact, so he's got a lot of yardage carrying. Big engine, so he gets through a lot of work rates. Really good around clean out. His ability to get underneath defenders and be really brutal. And he's a handy line out forward. So, so I think he's got a lot of opportunity based on that. And obviously Lucan initially until he got injured, and then Rob Simmons has come and done a good job. He's obviously a very strong line out personality, but we've challenged him around his physicality, and he's improved a lot around that collision area. So as I said, obviously when Rory got injured, so he wasn't an option anymore. We decided that we weren't going to bring anyone in, and we'll work with what we got here. So it's been good. We've learnt more about those guys, and a young guy like Trevor Hosea is going to be a hell of a lot better player now, even though he may not get a run on this year. He's been close to the mix, and he's learned a lot about himself and what's required to play at this level.
Yeah, we saw some of that physicality that I'm sure you would have been asking for from Rob Simmons in that last test in particular. Dave, one test to go against Argentina. The Tri-Nations, I'm sure you would even admit, is probably out of reach now. 101 points required. How do you approach the test? I'm sure you just want to win, but you probably want to make a statement as well. But do you look a little bit to the future as well, or not?
Yeah, we'll probably bat first, I think. We want to win this test, and we want to put in a performance, that is a reflection of all the hard work that's gone in. We're really disappointed last test because it's a test we should have nailed, and we didn't. We really let the Argentinians back in. So, we've got to be better than that. And, but, I have no doubt that further down the track, that lesson's going to be gold for us. We got to be smart around our kicking game. And when you're playing a team with 14 in the front line and one guy back, there's lots of kicking space to apply pressure. And then you get to counter off the next one where their chase line's less organised. So, that learning was rammed home last game. So we're going to put our best team possible on the park. And the idea is to, to do justice with a performance that we'd be really proud of.
What have you made of the Argentinians? I mean, that performance against New Zealand after not playing a Test match for more than a year was remarkable. I mean, how have you gauged where they're at in their development? Because they're on this long-term, new players and a couple of fresh faces in there, a couple of veterans having transitioned out of the side. They're maybe in a similar position to what the Wallabies are.
Yeah, I think if you added up the caps and you take out our 3 Centurions, it's a bit different, with obviously Rob will move overseas and with Slips missing at the moment. But they were outstanding against the All Blacks. And one thing the Argentinians do really well is a tackle. And if you keep running in their channel, they'll keep making tackles. And if you don't use footwork and you run high, they'll get 2 in the tackle and give you a slow ball. So we actually carried really well against them. They didn't get a lot of dual contacts against us, and we got a lot of fast ball that we should have done better with. So that's going to be important again. I think what you saw on the weekend against the All Blacks, the Pumas stayed in for a long time. At 17-0, it was still a little bit in the balance, I guess. But they forced the Pumas to play, to chase the game. And as soon as they did, they made errors and coughed up some soft points. So we've got to be really patient and we've got to build pressure. But I think they've been excellent, and certainly they haven't played a lot of rugby, and they've kicked a lot. But the defence has been outstanding. They're very comfortable playing without the ball.
Dave, we won't keep you for too much longer. We know you want to tuck into your dinner, no doubt. But being the last Test match, I'm sure the players are probably keen for a break. But do you feel like you're just starting to feel a bit more comfortable and you want to keep going a little bit, or are you ready for a break too?
Oh no, I mean I'd happily keep going. But it has been a long time together, and we did individual reviews with all the players on Friday, and we've got a lot of feedback from those guys, and so it's like I said, the group's really tight, and so the time's flown, and we've had a lot of fun, we've done a lot of hard work, we've laid a really good foundation, but in the end we're going to be judged on performances, and it'll be no good for us. We put in a poor performance in the weekend, and then you don't play another test till July. And what we know in July, we're going to play the French, and the French, I reckon, are the best team in Europe. Amazing depth, and so then coming over here wouldn't surprise me if our Six Nation champions by the time they arrive here. It's going to be a hell of a year around international footy. Obviously, a rugby championship. So there's another big 6 tests and a tour of Europe, and who knows, maybe even a Grand Slam opportunity if we can get the Irish over the line. So no soft games in there.
No, exactly right. Dave, I'm clearly this weekend is the end of something, but as you just said, it's very much the beginning as well, isn't it? Because we are in the early stages of your reign as Wallaby coach, and we look forward to not just this weekend, but the next few years as well. And thanks very much for joining us on Rugby Nation this week. Congratulations on what's happened so far, and best wishes for the future.
No, I appreciate that. And as you say, we're treating it as... this test is a springboard as opposed to a finishing line for the season. So, want to perform well to give us a bit of confidence heading into next year.
Be nice to see. Dave, thanks very much. Christy, thank you for your company again this week on Rugby Nation, and thank you for your company on Rugby Nation. I'm Nick McArdle. See you soon.
Thank you very much.